Okay, so let's put our names at the top of this. Yeah, I started putting key on. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to solve for one variable and at least one equation if necessary. So because we're just starting out with this, all the ones I gave you are going to have one equation already solved for a variable, and then as we work our way through some examples, we'll do some harder ones later on. And then what you do is you substitute that expression into the other one. Okay, so when you substitute something, what's another way I can say that? How can I tell somebody what substituting is? Okay, yeah, so you could switch in a number for a variable. Okay, anything else you guys are thinking about? Substitute is the same thing as plugging something in. Okay, so you're going to have to plug that one in. Okay, so when you substitute, you're going to plug into the equation. Okay, and when you plug in this value, it can be a number or sometimes it's going to be an entire equation. Okay? Now, your answer, just like when we did graphing, remember when we did graphing, our answer was always a point. So it's the same thing here. Your answer is always going to be a point that is x and y. All right, and then let's look at the first example. So you're going to solve each system using substitution. So we have y equals this whole thing here, and then it also says y equals -8. Okay, if they both say y equals, what we're going to do is we're going to plug one into the other. Okay, so my first equation, I want you to write this down. Okay, so write this down with me. We're going to write down the first equation. Okay, and then the second one, it says y equals -8. So that's what we're going to plug in for y. Okay, so if y is equal to that number, instead of y equals, we're going to have -8 equals. This is really similar to what we did when we were plugging in values. The only difference is now we're going to solve for x. Okay, so we're plugging -8 into the equation, and now we're going to solve for x. Okay, so if I'm going to solve for x, what do you guys think? What should I do first to get x by itself? We are going to divide second. There's one thing we have to do first. Yep, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add 3. Okay, so anything that's added or subtracted, that's going to go first. Okay, and then when you do this on your, when you do that one on your calculator, don't forget to type in the negative. Okay, I don't want you to make those small mistakes. So do you guys have your calculators out? Or do any of you need one? Keith, you want to tell me what you got? Great. Okay, so -8 plus 3 is -5. Okay, now we are going to divide. What are we going to divide by? +5. And how do we know we're dividing by the +5 and not the -5? It's in front of the x, exactly. So whatever is in front of the x, that's what you want to divide by, so you get x by itself. Do we know what -5 divided by 5 is? Yeah, great. Okay, so once you found x, okay, you already have y. So remember, you're writing your solution as the point x comma y. Okay, so for x we got -1, and they gave us y, -8, so that is going to be your solution. So your solution is always a point. Okay, so based on that, I'm going to have you guys do part B. So you have y equals 18 and then y equals 6x plus 6. Okay, so just like we did before, see how there's one that equals a number? That's what you're going to plug in to the equation. Bless you. Okay, so I want you to plug that in and then I want you to solve it. So with me. Okay, so when you get 18 equals 6x minus 6, we know we're moving all the numbers on the other side. And then you guys did a nice job writing this as your point as well. Okay, so if you wanted to double check, you could always check using what we did before. So remember last week when if this is your x and this is your y, you could just plug this in and see if 18 equals 6 times 4 minus 6. It's 24 minus 6, 18. Yep. And then your other check is just y equals 18. So it would just be 18 equals 18. So that would be true. Okay, so you can always check it that way. All right, now this one was a little bit different, but you guys did a really great job knowing where to plug in your values. So again, I always like to box in what I'm plugging in. So if y is -3, I have 5x minus 3y equals -16. I can plug it in right away, and I can simplify. Now be careful with this, because what happens when you do a negative times a negative? It should be positive, so it should be plus 9. And then you have a negative minus 9. I'm sorry, I know I don't normally go this fast, but when I came around, you guys were doing a great job of it. So your final answer should be -5, -3. How are we feeling about this? Okay. All right. Now on the back side, we're still doing substitution. Do you guys notice the only difference here? It's almost identical to the front. But on the front, all of our y's were numbers, and what do we have now? You have an x with the number, right? So you're still going to have a y equals, okay? Y equals 3x. And you're still going to plug it into your equation. The only difference is now when you plug this in for y, you have 3x equals x minus 2. So instead of just a number, you're going to have a variable with it. Okay, so what should my first step be now? Okay, what do you think? What should I do first? That we are going to divide, it's just I have an x here and an x here. So I have to get all my like terms together. Yep, so do what? If it is positive, we're going to subtract it. So because it's a positive x, we're going to subtract x from both sides. Okay, so make sure you write this down with me if you haven't yet. And x minus x is just going to be 0. So the only thing you're going to be left with on this side is negative 2. And then 3x minus x is 2x. All right, and then Keith, you want to tell me my next step after that? Great. Okay, and then Bree, what would you get for x if you divided negative 2 by 2? Yep. Okay, now remember last time we already knew what y was because they told us the number, but now we don't have a number, we have 3 times x. So what we have to do is substitute this in for x. So y is going to equal 3 times, what did, we just found x was negative 1, so I just have to put this here. And then what's 3 times negative 1? Negative 3, great. Okay, so your solution is always x comma y. Okay, and then again, if you want to check this, all you have to do is plug this in. So if you want to check y equals 3x, you're just going to plug in your y, your x, and see if both sides are the same. If both sides are the same, if you get true for both of them, you know that you did all of your math right. Okay, and then will you guys check the second equation for me? Okay, so we should plug in negative 3, and then this is negative 1 minus 2. Okay, this isn't multiplied because you have subtraction here. Is negative 1 minus 2 negative 3? Yeah, okay, so if they're both true, you know that you have the right solution. Okay, and I'm not going to make you check every one, but I'm going to have you pick a couple on your practice today to check those. Okay, so for part B, we're going to do the same thing. Now, this is the longer equation, this is the shorter one, so I like to start with the y equals negative 2x minus 16. And then you're going to plug the 2x in for y. Okay, so I want you to solve that for x, and then we're going to plug it in and solve for y. So the first thing you want to do is to get the x's on one side. So once you've done that, okay, then all you have to do is divide by 4. That's going to give you your x. Now remember, to find the y, you're just going to plug it back into this equation. So if you have y equals 2x, and you plug in negative 4, you're going to get negative 8. Okay, so your solution is negative 4 comma negative 8, and then just make sure you have your parentheses with your point. Okay, now part C, I know it looks a little bit different, but the concept is the same, where you're going to plug one equation into the other one. Okay, so if they're both y equals, you can just plug this in for your y term. Okay, so we're going to set equations equal. And really, you can start with whichever one you want. So I think of it as y equals 2x plus 4. And then instead of y, I'm going to rewrite that as x plus 3. Okay, so what really happens here is if you have y equals and you have y equals, you're going to set these equal to each other, and then you have to solve for x. Okay, now you can do this in one step or two. You just have to choose what side you want the x's to go to, and it really doesn't matter. But we know this number here is a 1, and then if you're subtracting 1x from both sides and you want to keep that number positive, you can move the smaller number to the larger number. Okay, so we're going to get the x terms on one side. And then after you get the x terms on one side, you have to get all the number terms on the other side. Time to let this pen go. Okay, so then all we're going to do is subtract 4. Okay, so then our x value is going to be -1. 3 minus 4 is -1. Okay, and then just like we did last time, you're going to plug it into an equation. And here's the great part. It doesn't matter which one you do. Okay, so if you chose the top one, y equals x plus 3, you're just going to plug in -1 plus 3. And y is going to equal, if you do -1 plus 3, you'll get 2. And then Reagan, yeah, we check this on yours. Okay, and you don't have to write both of these down, I just want to show you that you really can use either one. So if you use the bottom one, 2 times -1 is -2. -2 plus 4 is 2. So whichever one you choose, you're going to get 2 for your y. Okay, and then this is a good one to check here because you want to make sure your solution's right. You can just plug it in to y equals x plus 3. So does 2 equal -1 plus 3? Is that 2? Yes. And then the second one, y equals 2x plus 4. 2 equals 2 times -1 plus 4. Okay, so if they're both true, you know that you found the right answer, okay?